Not my book, not my intro.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So we just finished, we finished all the Prototype Fragments servants. I was like, wow, let's read Prototype Fragments.
I mean, technically, have we done Beast 666?
Kinda, sorta, not really, but it's not like there's a good spot to put it at the moment.
So technically, we haven't finished all of Fate Prototype servants.
But also, like, the fuck is Beast 666?
What do you mean the fuck is Beast 666? It's a biblical reference.
And we did cover the biblical, like, because we didn't cover Beast 666. We covered some of the biblical, like, the beast in the Bible stuff with Nero and Draco.
Yeah.
But it's not Beast 666, because I didn't because we don't have that much information on Fate's Beast 666.
Look, I'm just saying, you were technically, pedantically incorrect, because we have not covered the Beast 666.
There's not much to cover right now.
Yeah, I'm just saying. But yeah, we were really just waiting on Paracelsus von Hohenheim.
Yeah, and we got him out of the way, so we're like, yeah, let's put up Fate Prototype right after Paracelsus.
Because we did everyone else ages ago.
The last one before Paracelsus was Arash.
Yeah, and we did Arash back in like March or something. Like, it was a long time ago. So yeah, we read 5 volumes of Fate Prototype, Fragments of the Silver Sky. I assume that's
Fragments
all of
of
them.
Sky Silver.
Who cares? Who the fuck cares?
I mean, technically, the author wrote another book that's like
No.
a crossover between this and Case Files.
No. I can't. Fucking can't. Within 2 pages of opening the prologue of this, I wanted to shrivel up inside myself and die. Which is unfortunate, because this is my Aussie.
Yes, this is your Aussie story. I was very disappointed by how they used Aussie in this story.
I was so disappointed by it. I mean, it was nice that we got Aussie.
But
And there was that cute little interaction with Azo? Azo? The kid's name. His
Messiah?
master. No, his master.
His master. The master of...
Isemi or something? Atto?
I forget his name.
It's an A. It's a
I know what
3-letter
you're talking
name that starts with an A.
The book 3 guy. The guy
Yeah.
who was like the center focus of most of book 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it was nice. Then I got when we did Aussie originally. You made the joke to me that Nefertari and Moses do technically have portrayals in Fate, and so we actually had looked at the image with the 2 of them. So like I'd already seen that image, and it was nice seeing the interaction with like Nefertari and stuff. Nice to get a confirmation that Ozzy is absolutely a wife man. Stunning. But like,
his entire story was split between like 2 or 3 different books as far as how it played out, and that means that as you read through it, you're reading it out of order, and it's kind of.
But regardless if it was split between books, because I read plenty of book series where characters have their character arcs split between books. To be honest, it's just that, and I fully believe this. The only characters that had semi-decent arcs across 5 books, right, was like Hassan of Serenity. Because Hassan of Serenity had a decent story across the 5 books. I don't think Paracelsus did.
Really?
No, because Paracelsus is just lurking. For 4 fucking books.
Okay, maybe for like the individual books, I can see that. I actually thought Paracelsus's focus book, the 2nd book, was the strongest of the books.
Well, yeah, but I mean, once again,
yeah.
like in volume 1, 3, and 4, he's just kind of lurking. Obviously, Ozzy was a disappointment. Arash was unfortunate because I feel like you could have done way more with Arash.
He got like half a book.
Yeah, and in that half a book, it's tied between the half that's a little bit about him and a lot about his master, right? So, like, you don't even, I'm gonna be honest, Arash doesn't even get that much information, right? At least most of the other servants got, like, a fairly decent-sized section about, like, their origins and their actual backstory. Arash didn't even get that. There was literally 2 pages where he was just like, I, Arash Karangir, you know?
I'm going to throw out a point of clarification for people watching this in the future from where we're at. As we're recording this, Seki has not played Camelot, where a bunch of these characters make their reappearance. So, like, if you make any sort of comment about these characters in Camelot, fuck off.
I know nothing.
Yeah.
And then who else? We got nothing from Berserker. Nothing.
He was just there to get jobbed.
Yeah, no, just he's fucking gone. Just irrelevant apparently. Protoype was there?
So that's a bit of a weird thing. Protoype wasn't part of the central story, but Protoype was part of the original Prototype.
Okay, I was so confused because I know the Protoype is a Lancer, right? And Protoype showed up multiple times. He was in images, he was in the story, he talked to the characters, like he was acting like a guard dog, you know, that one moment. But then Lancer is Brunhilde.
It's because there's 2 Grail Wars that the story covers. It covers the first Grail War in
1991 and the 1998.
And Ku was involved in the 1998 Grail.
1999, sorry.
Yeah, 99.
Okay.
So occasionally it flashes forward, but it never gives you a full picture of that Grail War.
But that meant that we got nothing on Protoype, even though he was in here. Literally nothing other than a joke about him being a guard dog that was very obfuscated, right? Brunhilde was irrelevant until book 4. And then she appeared in book 4, was driven mad, had a fair amount of text that was just her obsessing over Sigurd, who isn't a character.
No, she sees Arthur as Sigurd.
Yeah. But that's not how it's written, right? Because, like, you see her fighting Arthur, and she goes nuts, right, because of the potion. And then they just change all of the names to Sigurd, and then it's just a story about her and Sigurd for 30 fucking pages, and then she dies. Meaning that she's largely irrelevant.
For me, it doesn't feel like we read a full story with this. It feels like we read multiple vignettes like Martian Chronicles style.
And you know how much I hate Martian Chronicles.
And that's why I knew you wouldn't really care for the way this story was told. Besides the fact that it was written like a fucking play.
I also didn't like Arthur.
There we go.
I'm so glad I didn't waste any quartz rolling on him yesterday when his banner was up, because I almost did. I did not like Arthur.
He doesn't really do anything interesting in this story.
He doesn't even get a good Excalibur reveal like Artoria did in Fate's Day Night 2000. If Fate's Day Night 2006 did anything worth watching, it was the Excalibur reveal. You don't even get that here. Like, we know he's King Arthur. We, the reader, know from the very beginning that he is King Arthur, right? We know. It's never, you don't get a big Excalibur reveal, right? Like, at all. There's some hints at, like, Camlin and stuff, you know? And mentions toward knighthood, but, like, on the whole, he has no personality. He's just
there for his master to plot behind his back the entire time, just for him to stab her when he finds out what she's doing.
Yeah.
And then there's the implication that he occasionally gets involved in action scenes.
Yeah. But, like, the most action he ever gets into is bodying Brunhilde, which we barely get to see because it's all from Brunhilde's perspective and she's thinking of Sigurd, right? A. And then B, technically, he's part of the fight with Arash against Ozzy, but that whole fight's really about Arash and Ozzy, not anyone else. And then he briefly crosses lances with her in book 1, with Brunhilde. It's literally like 2 pages, and it's like, hey, you should tell me your name. I'm not gonna. You should tell me your sword's name. I'm not gonna. Okay. Bye. And then they leave. And that's it. This was character assassination. Ozzy deserved better.
I'm actually kind of glad you didn't drop quartz on Arthur. You know why?
Why?
Because I would have had to help you figure out gameplay ways to work around that. He's probably one of the worst 5 stars in FGO because they've neglected him pretty badly.
To be fair, I did almost drop a bunch of quartz on Bazette.
She's considered one of the best alter egos in the game.
But There's a surprise Iskandar summon starting tonight.
Hmm.
I'm going to drop 60 quartz on Iskandar and try to get him. That's all I have to drop right now, but like I am going to try to get him. I likely will not, but because I saw you got Bazette.
Yeah, I dropped some tickets and like finished off my 10 pull with a few like 12 quartz and I got her.
I dropped 7 tickets, finished it off on hers, and did not get her. In fact, I did not get anyone new.
Womp womp. The gotcha giveth and the gotcha taketh away.
Yeah, the gotcha has not given me anything in a while. Anyways, but yeah, so that's why I didn't spend it on Arthur or Bazette. Anyways, but I also, once again, Nick Nack and I discussed this. It might have just been the way that this was transliterated, right? But every time someone talks, it's in the format of like Archer or their name in bold and then a colon and then what they say. Or even worse, if they're thinking something, parentheses. And then the rest is basically just stage direction.
And I have no idea why it was written like that. Because as far as I can tell, it doesn't look like that in the original text. Because I did actually find some raw text for Volume 5's Japanese version. And it doesn't look... And then the same translator that did these 5 volumes, both the old translation and the new translations, also translated a short story that was released, or not a short story, it was like the prologue of Lost Einjar before a different translator took over, and they don't do that with the Lost Einjar prologue either.
So this was basically unreadable for me practically.
I hate this format, but we were throwing it back and forth. Like, I don't know, like if you in the comments know why this format was done, let us know. My running theory was that the format it was written in Japanese was a stage format, which it just looks a lot less jarring in the Japanese stage format. Just looks a lot less jarring on page than English stage format. But when they converted it, they brought over the stage format. Still, they just switched it over to an English stage format, and it looks a lot more jarring for us. That's my running theory, but I don't know for certain. So if you know in the comments, let us know what the. I know we have a few people in our comments who are big translation heads. So if any of you know what went on here, let us know, because we read the Volume 1 new translation and then the 4 volumes afterwards, which I know were older translations.
I'm gonna be honest.
They both did that.
4 through 5 were actually easier to read than 1. 1 was worse.
I think that was just the Volume 1 was just...
Yeah. And then there's also the weird random intersections of those notebook chapters, which you don't figure out anything about till the very end, right? Mm-hmm. Which... okay, it's kind of cool that it's like the notebook from the father, right? But like, I think I'm gonna be honest. Half the time, I just wanted to skip those interjections, anyways. Like it's just mechanics. They're literally using the plot device of like reading a page of someone's old notebook to lore dump mechanics that no one who knows Fate needs. And if you don't know Fate, they're not actually that helpful because they're sporadic and specialized. So they're not helpful to someone like me, and then they're also annoying to someone like me.
Like where you know it, and where it's not, you don't know it's not helpful.
Yeah, it's not helping me with anything I'm confused with. It's just reiterating in a really stupid way stuff I don't need reiterated, which is not great. And then like at the start, and then there's that like Jerusalem stuff at the start of like every single book and like half the chapters, and I'm like, okay, we get it. You want to talk about Jerusalem, whatever. I don't need to read this 57 times.
I think the problem is this series, the way it's written, is just trying to be too cryptic. It's trying to play itself like this. You get these bits and pieces that by the end you can piece together. But
they don't piece together well at the end.
It feels like we're missing chunks still. And it doesn't flow very well. I think books 2 through 4 are a little better, because books 2 through 4, 2 and 3 more than 4 in my opinion, they hyper focus in on one character and tell that character's story in the Grail War.
But that means that then you get stuff out of order.
Because then you go from book 2 to 4 and like, oh, we're back to the start of the Grail War.
Or they'll be like, the Ikebukuro incident is referred to like 15 different times.
Like, what the hell are you
And you don't actually get to see the Ikebukuro incident until like Volume 5 or some shit, you know?
It makes it confusing to follow.
On the note of confusing, so I made notes as I was reading this one and Lost Einherjar. So I thought it might be amusing for me to just read the notes out, no context, in order.
Oh, we're going the Fate the Unlimited Blade Works route here, except the reverse. You didn't like this one.
Yeah. So let's start with a real strong one. Perseus is a surprise.
Yeah, that's our writer in Prototype. You just don't get to see him much because Prototype's not written.
Yeah. The format is a nightmare. Poor Serenity. But she kind of did us all a public service. I love Ozzy so much. All hail Nefertari. Castor and Berserker are just there. Castor has some stuff, but it's mostly backstory adjacent.
I can make a comment, but you can go on if you want to.
Poor Tamaki. Fuck Paracelsus. Why did you do that to Serenity? 8 years, back to front, notebook interludes, constant flashbacks. Archer and his master getting drunk is the funniest shit. Damn, Arash and Brunhildred really be duking it out. Aw, Elsa, that's so sad. She deserved better. Lancer and Archer v Ozzy, Ozzy wins. Saber added, still think Ozzy wins. No, Arash. Ozzy just looks so fine. Fuck you, Brunhilde deserved better. Nigel. So much Arthur. Huh. Dad knows a lot. Jesus Christ, Ayaka. And Hiroki. Goddamn. Manaka is just a fucking sociopath. Huh. Okay. Saber as Ayaka's servant, not Manaka. Beast 666 Y. That's it. That's all she wrote.
I want you to know that the Beast 666, like, you're probably like, you've seen enough Sekirex to Fate, like, you've done enough of that now, you're like, oh, the Beasts, a Fate thing. The Beasts weren't formally introduced as a concept into Fate, like, as a hard concept, until, like, 2 or 3 years after this.
I'm gonna be so incredibly real with you. I didn't even make the connection, because I wasn't thinking of it as, oh, a beast. I was thinking of the Beast of 666 as a character. So I did not even make the connection to it potentially being one of the beasts.
Well, surprise! Doesn't really make that much of a difference at all.
Yeah.
We've done a lot of ranting on the format here and of the fact that bits and chunks were missing. So this actually might be a good time to bring up. This recently got in the last year, they started a manga adaptation. And they basically took a look at the format, said, fuck that, and they're telling the story in a linear fashion.
That would be an improvement, I think. I look forward to that when it's finished, although, knowing Fate, I have no hopes that'll happen during my lifetime. Lost on Her Jar Volume 2.
Do you think that's bad? I've been waiting on Requiem for years now.
Yeah. So good for you. I admire your chutzpah and your desire. Let's see if your desire trumps fate.
Foxtail is only about to finish up 10 years later. As for the actual story itself, beyond the fact that we feel like there's a lot of characters that just didn't get done justice, I don't like this story.
No, it's shit.
Like, at all. Like, for me,
it's shit.
It was trying to do the Fate Zero thing of this is the dark prequel. But the Fate Zero thing...
No, it's shit.
The characters that, like, died miserable, often worse than deaths, they were usually characters that deserved it, or you can see how they got to that point.
No, it's shit. There's no hint that Manaka is going to do what she does. There's no reasoning for her doing what she does until the very end. And the reasoning that they give does not make sense. There's only one thing in 5 volumes, right, that makes sense as a story that has any emotion to it, right? And that is Hassan of Serenity. And Hassan of Serenity's participation in the story. That is the only part of 5 volumes that was something that I would consider well written literarily. That is it. Just Hassan of Serenity. And Hassan of Serenity's interactions with Tatsumi. That's it.
I'll diverge from you on that. I do want to come back to some of my thoughts on the story, because I have much harsher thoughts here. But if I'm picking a part of the story that I actually like, I like Volume 2. Because I didn't follow it as Paracelsus' story. I followed it as Misaia's story, the daughter. And I felt like her story was well told.
I'm not even judging the story in regards to like book by book, right?
But as
like,
a whole,
like as a whole, the only thing that actually made me feel something, right, was Hassan of Serenity killing her first master, which was a public service, and we should all be grateful. But poor Tatsumi, and then Tatsumi haunting her for the rest of the story that she was present in. That was the only part I thought that had any value. Every other part of this was not good.
see, coming back to that, though, like, after I got done with Misaya's part, I was like, oh, that's a neat little, like, prequel thing. I know that character comes back in the future, so this is setting up their character arc. It's pretty well done. And then they did the Tatsumi thing, and I'm like, okay. And then you see both Brynhildr and Arash's master go through it, and I'm just like, okay. So there's no thematic purpose to this. Most of these characters don't deserve the fates they got at the end. This is just torture porn. This isn't a tragedy. It's torture porn.
You know it's torture porn when a fine specimen like Ozzy doesn't make it to the end.
Like, I come out of Fates, I'm like, oh, that was a well-told tragedy. I come out of this, I'm just like, wow, that was all hurt, no comfort, just torture porn. Like, the only purpose of these characters is to make sure they hurt in the worst possible ways, just so that you feel bad when Monica, like the villain, survives, and even that ends up being pointless. It's like, oh, it's a prequel to a series that doesn't exist. So I have no, like, my opinion on this story is there's no narrative value here. It's not a prequel to a good story because there's no story that it's a prequel to, and the narrative value it does have is just kicking a dog while it's down.
What do you call a prequel that doesn't have a story after it?
It's like,
I don't know. What's it pre to? A quell? What's the quell for this?
To a SparkNotes summary.
Look, I don't think this is good. It was not an enjoyable 5 books to read. It didn't make a lot of sense. It felt like any time that they wanted to kill someone off, they would just dump us in like anywhere between 5 to 50 pages of like intense emotional feels about their tragic backstory or their tragic life story, and then still murder them. And that was it. That's really what this 5 books is it's just a series of like 5 to 50 page segments of like tragic backstory followed by a murder interspersed with some fighting. Yeah.
Maybe my thoughts would eventually change if they did do a Fate Prototype. But like, this was not making me that interested in seeing it. The OVA release with Carnival Phantasm makes me more interested in Fate Prototype than this. This just makes me like, I never want to read this again. Like, I know the manga's coming out, and I probably will take a look at it at some point, but this didn't endear me to the Prototype setting.
It sucked for me, too, because 2 of the people I was expecting and I wanted to see were Gilgamesh and Proto-Ku.
Well, I knew you weren't getting those. But
I got, like, 3 images of Proto-Ku and 1 of Gilgamesh. Got a little. I think, obviously, I'm not necessarily as negative, but I think that is entirely in reference to the fact that I do not have the backgrounding of, like, the Nasuverse and, like, all the prequel, like, all that stuff. For me, this is just a book, and all these books could exist around it. I just don't know if they do, or I don't have access to them. So for me, it's just a bad series. Like, I wouldn't read this. I would have dropped this in book 1. Like, genuinely, if this was a fan fiction, I would have just stopped reading after, like, a chapter or 2. And it, like, I don't often stop reading stuff. Like, you know me, that's a fairly strong indictment of negative feeling for me to just stop reading something. Because normally, I'll at least finish what I'm reading, right? Even if I am not the fondest of it, I fall into time sink fallacy. Once I've put a certain amount of time in, I feel the need to keep putting the time in till it's done. Don't feel that way about this.
I just thought the series was thoroughly unpleasant to read, even as a story on its own.
Well, on that note, Ozzy looks delectable in every art he was depicted in.
We've seen some of this art before for Reacts.
I know.
You get to see it again, though. And unlike normally when we read a Fate book, you didn't have to ignore the art this time.
Yeah! Speaking of... No, we'll get into that in the next one we're recording.
Yeah. That's not even the next one coming up. Yeah, it might be the next one coming up. I don't know.
I think it is.
Okay.
Yeah. It might not... It's within the next 2 videos coming out.
You already dropped it here. We are reading Lost Iron. I don't know if it's the next one coming out, but it's
Yeah.
coming up if it's not out already.
Well, your book, your outro.
Go read the manga, folks.
Whatever's out.
Yeah.